Hi, this is Andrea. I am the mother to a beautiful autistic daughter, and I believe in a better future for her and all other neurodivergent young people. So I hope this is not your first time listening, but if it is, I'm also one of the many parent advocates for neurodiversity in Oxfordshire, UK. Being an advocate allows me to use my voice for my daughter, for other parents, for neurodivergent individuals themselves, and for professionals. Welcome to Season 2 of the Neurodiverse Voices podcast. Hi, everyone. Today's guest of the Neurodiverse Voices podcast is someone I haven't met in person. I just met her a few minutes ago online. And yeah, she has a lot to share with us. She's a team bonding expert. She's the founder of Bake to Explore, and she's neurodivergent herself. Hi, Leila. Welcome to the Neurodiverse Voices podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for the conversation, Andrea. Thank you.
Thank you for being here and for reaching out. We have an interesting story. We connected on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has those wonders these
Yeah.
days, and actually, Leila spends half of her time between London and Athens, which is where she is at the moment in sunny Athens. And I'm very
Yeah.
jealous because in here we have the usual dull, rainy day.
As you can see, I'm sitting in with my t-shirt. So yeah,
Yeah,
and we
lucky you.
still haven't turned on the heating on yet. Yeah,
Good. I
I'm
hope.
trying to be grateful for every single moment of it.
Yeah, you should. You should. I can't wait to go to Athens. Actually, I haven't been to Greece yet, and I'm missing out. Right.
You're
So
more than welcome to come and see Athens, visit
let's
me
see you.
here while
Yeah.
I'm here until next year.
Who knows if our next interview to as a
Yeah.
catch up will be in Athens? It
Yes,
could be.
I
That's a
would
good
love
idea.
that.
Okay, Leila. Can you start by telling us how has your neurodiversity shaped your journey. So you also have a human rights background, a human rights lawyer as a background, and I didn't mention this. And you are now a cultural connector. How did your neurodivergence shaped your journey so far?
Thank you. Yes, I'm a human rights lawyer turned a small business owner. Um, when I set up my small business and when I was mainly focused on practicing as a human rights lawyer, I didn't have any idea about my neurodivergent brain. But it was always, as far as I remember, I had this problem of fit in within my family, within the community, country, city, everywhere. Um, and I developed this kind of, I think so many people may relate to that, this people's pleasing and also the perfectionist persona, which goes very hand in hand with the lawyer identity, which is something that I heard about in a conference that I attended last week in London, which the question was, what does it mean to be a lawyer? And the research showed that I don't know why the people in the legal industry develop that perfectionist persona even at law school, which was in my case as well, which now I understand it was because of the RSD, um, and also the fact that you are hypersensitive towards rejection and criticism. Then you build up that perfectionist persona to just protect yourself. And this is a coping mechanism that your brain directs you to that. So back to your question, when I during my um during my human rights practice, when I was mainly focused on working on human rights field, it was very challenging with the neurodivergent brain because generally speaking, before inter just give you more examples. I
And
really
yeah,
want to emphasize on the fact that I'm talking from my own experience, and every
mhm,
single neurodivergent brain might be different from another. What I'm saying is just based on my own experience. I witnessed so many similar traits among the people, neurodivergent people around me, but still I'm talking about my own experience. The fact that you absorb and the pain of others affects neurodivergent people, especially people with ADHD, much deeper than the average population. Imagine that being on that field as a consultant with zero support for your mental health and working on very a complex human rights violation situation, and also the hyper focus that makes you going through one burnout to another. And
like
it
there's no
made it
rest in
very,
between.
that's a neurodivergent angle and a situation. It was more, brought me more challenges at during the time, let's say my 20s university time, and my legal practice, and then a human rights practice in my 20s and my 30s. It was more challenging, but also I can, now that I look back, I understand the compassionate approach that I had. I can
Because now
tell
you
that,
have that understanding.
that makes much more sense. But also for me as a person, it was very challenging. And but when I started the business, I still didn't have any idea about my neurodivergent brain. I think I started to become aware of it when I stepped into peri-menopause journey,
Mhm.
which is, I can tell about at least how I noticed it, because it was very, I just faced with a new self that I couldn't even recognize, because those hormonal changes enabled me to mask my symptoms. And all of a sudden I realized, oh, I don't recognize this person. Who is this
Who am
woman?
I?
Yeah. And then it was very difficult for me, because that also it's something to do with ADHD as well, because there is a emotional development delay in your brain. So yes, I am 45, but I feel like 35, and I act like much younger than myself.
Mhm.
So it was very difficult for me to accept or acknowledge that it might be the perimenopausal journey,
Yeah.
because statistically I am in that group. Anyway, it took me the learning about perimenopause situation. It took me, even ordering a book to read about it, it took me a year and a half, because I
Yeah,
didn't want to accept. But then starting to, yeah,
I'm quite glad you brought this topic, and I'm already thinking, yeah, it would be a good episode as well to focus on menopause, women, and neurodivergence. Yeah, I've been to a conference recently as well, and I was asked if I knew something about it. And there's a lot of lack of awareness, and I think from what I hear from conversations with other women, the symptoms become a lot more evident as you go through both premenopause and menopause,
yeah,
isn't it? So yeah, definitely something for us to explore. And thank you for bringing that
absolutely.
up, because
Yeah.
it really needs to be yeah, more awareness is needed about this.
Neurodiverse Voices podcast, celebrating difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, it's just completely unable you to mask, because you learned from very young age for exact same
Yes.
problem that I mentioned, that you want to fit in, because you don't want to feel like excluded, or you don't want to feel like that you're rejected because of the different brain that you have. And yeah, and that's hormonal. And also you start to learn and become a master of masking from very early age. And then imagine that you're doing this pretty much your whole adult life, and all of a sudden you're unable to mask things and everything is out there. The emotional
challenging.
regulation mainly, the energy level, the focus, the hyperactivity, the low days that you have, these are all new because you learn, push yourself all the time to the maximum level. And because physically most people with ADHD have the energy to push themselves, and cognitively, you don't care that, okay, yes, my body can handle, but my body needs some care and rest and a self-care plan as well.
And
So
it feels
this
like you
is,
never prioritize yourself, isn't it?
oh no, yeah, that's so true. It's a, to be honest, it's a day-to-day practice, but also it takes so long. At least it took me so long to process and unpack this prioritizing self. And I'm still practicing it day to day. I have to remind myself. I have to, yeah. And then when I started the business, I didn't have any idea about my neurodivergent brain. But then when the business developed, and then I started to learn more and more about how my brain works, I realized that I want to shape my business with the fact that I was always desperate to find a safe space to share my story, to listen to other people. And this is what I want to do in my business as well.
Yeah, and I can relate.
Yeah.
I can relate with that. With launching the Neurodiverse Voices podcast.
Yeah.
Neurodiverse Voices podcast, celebrating difference.
Very much.
And I more and more, when I talk to people, for example, yesterday, oh gosh, it was just yesterday. I thought that it might be a week ago. It was yesterday that I organized my first EDI networking breakfast, equality, diversity, and inclusion among some pioneers' voices in this sector. And I realized that even within that sector, lack of that safe space for people in that sector to talk to each other is missing.
Yeah, there's still a lot of work to do.
Yeah. And it's so important because we are all, this is how connect us as human beings, sharing our stories, learning from each other's lived experiences, but getting to that point without having that safe space that you feel like that it's okay to share.
Absolutely.
As much as it's okay not to share, but if I want, I can. There is no judgment, and other people are there with the same intention. So I realized over time that because I was struggling with fit in, that made me someone who's always trying to create that space that I never had and reclaim my own space, because the spaces and the communities were available out there, I didn't feel fit in.
Yeah.
So
And now you
maybe,
do.
sometimes even unconsciously in the past, I was always doing this, but now I'm quite conscious about it. I'm intentional about it. And the amount of details that I put in place when I want to organize an event or that space, it doesn't matter if it's online or in person. And also I can see the impact of that way of thinking in my human rights practice as well. Whenever I'm part of an empowering project or a human rights education project, because now I'm more focused on human rights education, I'm trying to create that space.
Neurodiverse Voices podcast, celebrating difference.
It doesn't matter if they ask me to do it or not. That's part of how I'm
That's
doing
your intention.
these days. Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing. There's a lot in there. One other thing that we have in common, I think you're actually my first yeah, the first guest that I have who is not English. Well, I'm not English either. And yeah, I'm interested to also hear from you. How have your experiences as a migrant, or yeah, or a
Yeah.
foreigner who have lived in the UK influenced your perspective and the work with underrepresented communities?
Thanks for asking this question, because most of the time, your migrant background or migrant, that part of your identity is never been asked about or just never been investigated to see how it shapes your approach. And also for me, that's an important part of diversity as well. I think it just my approach and the migrant layer of my identity is just very intertwined with what I already discussed, creating that space and reclaim my space. I moved to the UK in 2010. And I would say before setting up my business, I couldn't say that I officially reclaimed my space from the city, from my new country, because I was already a British citizen by then. But then by doing my own business and developing my own business, I started to see, oh yes, there are less and less non-white first generation of migrants in the networks that I join into, in the conferences that I go to. Yes, there are less and less people, but I feel confident enough to reclaim my space. And this is something that I really want to be an advocate for, because there are so many little things that stopped me to have my own voice in my early years. And also you are struggling with so many other aspects of your life. Maybe it wasn't a priority for me to just advocate for who I am, or just claiming my space, have my own voice, get more visibility, because who I am with different multi-layered identity that I have. And also I didn't maybe now intersectionality, including my migrant background, is something that I want to talk about everywhere that I go. And also I decided to be more focused on speaking and public speaking and sharing my story and my lived experience, including that part. And something when it comes to the neuro diversity is quite interesting, and also it's something that maybe people that English is their first language and live in the same country that they born, they may not think about it, is the fact that, for example, during the formal process of diagnosis, there is a part of the form which is asked about your school reports, asked about your family, your close family members' memories, and the questions that they need to answer. I cannot fill up that part because we didn't have I studied in a completely different school setting. There is no school report. And I cannot even have this conversation with my parents because there is a language barrier, because I educate myself about ADHD and neurodiversity in English. I don't even have, and this is a bit sad, because even if my mom become super open about the neurodiversity and neurodivergent brain, I don't have the language to talk to her. I don't even know how to say ADHD in my mother tongue, even though ADHD doesn't represent my exact brain condition, but even though at least there is a name.
That's very, very interesting, because it still feels like, even though we talk a lot more about it, it feels like we forget like the older generations, and this is a diverse country. It's one of the things that I love most about it. I feel like since I moved here 16 years ago, I expanded my horizons so much. I learned so much, and I feel like when I go back home, I don't feel that same vision, because if you live in the same place, and I just lived in two countries, and there's a lot of other people who actually move between more countries. But yes, it feels like we forget about the older generations. We forget about the different cultural background, the different origins, and it's quite sad because we are a multicultural country, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, and it's yeah, I had no idea in the diagnosis process that you were asked those questions, and you're absolutely right. How do you answer them if you don't know?
Neurodiverse Voices podcast, celebrating difference.
And also that may affect your diagnosis, especially if you go through the NHS system. Because I had some of my other friends had the same experience, not because their parents are in another country, but because of the complex childhood situation, they didn't have access. They didn't want to get outreach to their parents, but that then this affected their diagnosis. Imagine that when there is no school report, when your parent, which means that they didn't think about that part when they were putting together that form, including so many other things, because the whole process is just so non-neurodivergent friendly.
That happens in so many situations, in so many systems.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, we know that a lot has to change.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm really glad that I asked this question, because even being a foreigner myself, I don't think I'm so blended in here, that I think sometimes I forget my own cultural background, even though I'm super proud to be Portuguese, and yeah, I'm super proud of my origins and my culture. I think it's easy to forget, as you were saying, you are busy with your life and everything that you have on your plate, that it's it's quite often forgotten about. So we shouldn't forget about our culture, and the systems and the government, whenever something is designed, should pay more attention to this aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, again, is also about the exposure and the visibility that I would like that kind of migrant and cultural heritage be part of it as well.
Yeah.
Because to me, I think you may have the same experience. More and more you enter into spaces that you are intellectually, academically, you feel belong, but then again, the representation is not there. You are the only person, for example, or most of the time I'm the only person that I'm a first generation of migrant, or have invisible diversity, because as you can see, my skin tone is not that dark. So I have to say that I have to say it. Yeah, so that's why it's very important for me to reclaim that space now that I feel like that I'm confident enough, and it helped me a lot. That reminds me of an interesting conversation that yesterday happened. Another human rights lawyer colleague that was joined in that networking event, she said that, what if people don't want to share their stories? Which is a very valid question. And it is absolutely, I do believe that it's up to people to decide how much they want to share, with whom they want to share, if they want it at all. But when I look at myself, most of the important decisions that I made in life, it was based on an inspiration that I had based on somebody else's experience.
Neurodiverse Voices podcast, celebrating difference.
And I think, yes, it's not, and even myself, that I just, I'm quite open about talking about my lived experience. And I think it's important for people to hear about different people's lived experience and learn from uh, each other's lived experience. But also, there are so many aspects of my life that I'm not ready to talk about, or I may not be ready at any point of my life. But still, I think there is a power in sharing
sharing.
our stories and learning from each other's lived experiences, even though it may not be the same as ours. But for me at least, there is always something to learn when I listen to people, and that's why I really, really like and enjoy your podcasts.
Thank you.
A few
Um,
of the episodes made me emotional a lot, especially when you listen to parents who
mhm.
are who have neurodivergent kids, because I didn't have that. I didn't have a supportive parent because they didn't have any idea. I didn't have any idea either. And you feel like that, how much having that support can make a difference, and
Difference.
early diagnosis as well. This is something that I really, really hope that it will be the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with going back to the sharing and as you said, it's finding that fine balance between, not oversharing. And as you said, some people might not be ready to share, but it also allows you not to feel isolated. It allows you not to feel lonely because there will be other people who might have a different, because every journey is going to be unique,
Absolutely.
but you will be able to relate. And I've also learned that in the past year or so, since I was able to find myself as a mom and getting to know so many other parents, it made a huge difference in terms of my confidence. And I really like what you said, that you find inspiration in other people. It's exactly the same for me. Every
Yeah.
single guest to me is inspiring because I just learned so much from all of you. So yeah, it's that fine balance between sharing and your own privacy and keeping your own privacy for yourself. And thank you for saying that you really enjoy the podcast and the stories of the other guests. And I'm pretty sure
Thank you
all other
for
guests will enjoy to
creating this
listen
space.
to Leila's journey as well.
Neurodiverse Voices podcast, celebrating difference.
So going back to work, we are always going back to work. How does your neurodivergent brain help you to approach challenges in a creative way at work?
When you're a lawyer, one of the things, there are so many pressure, and so many not very nice things that happen to you at law school and then during your practice. But something that you train your brain is a problem solving, and also ADHD. It helps you to be a good problem solver. And also the fact that your brain works much better under crisis, which is not the typical trend that you see in people. And also, more and more, I realized that the fact that, because before it makes me super frustrated because I thought that everybody's brain working the same. And I was always thinking that why people are so slow when why they can't process something that they processed an hour ago. That made me, especially as a kid, I remember, I don't have that much memory from my childhood, but a few memories is just about frustration, why people don't get this. I'm already moved on. I'm already thinking about another thing. I'm talking about another thing, but they are still at the previous stage because I was always think that everybody's
You're
brain is
always
the
a step
same.
ahead.
We are all the
Yeah.
same. And also the fact that I am, and I know that it's a common trend at that we are very good observants with certain level of hypersensitivity. It helps because you can scan the room very quickly. For example, for someone like me, who that I'm part of my work, I'm creating inclusive corporate events, or at the big, or even before that, it was working with the customers, not corporates. It helped me a lot, as well as when I was working with kids, because I could easily observe the room and see that, okay, this person feels like uncomfortable, maybe because of the space, maybe because of the light. And these are the things that I take into consideration, because for me, I cannot concentrate if the light is not right, or if there is a strong smell in the room. It doesn't matter if it's a nice perfume or it's just something unpleasant. It just completely affect my focus. So I'm aware of this little thing, which is really helpful when you want to curate an event that is an inclusive one. And the problem solving, and also the creative mind as well, because there are situations that doesn't go with the plan, and it's most of the time is the case. The fact that I think my brain, and I'm just really grateful for that aspect, that is so quick to just come up with some other ideas, and I just don't feel like that I'm just freeze. There are so many occasions that my brain freeze and just stop working, but at least in them, when it comes to the crisis or something,
Improvisation. Yeah.
because it's just the dopamine that the brain, an ADHD brain, constantly try to produce that hormone that is lacking manually. That's why we put everything for the last minute, because the brain needs that dopamine working under the deadline, and so many other relevant things. But also having that awareness is just help you to come up with the strategies and
Toolkits to help you.
yeah, but also you have to revise them all the time. You have to remind yourself all the time. It's not just that you come up with a strategy and it works for the rest of your life and find no.
Yeah. Nope.
No.
Neurodiverse Voices podcast, celebrating difference.
So we thank you for sharing. We talked about you getting inspiration from other people and from hearing other different lived experiences. What has inspired you to create Bake to Explore, and how does it reflect your passion for inclusion and connection?
That's not an easy question to answer, to be honest, because I think in life I'm a collector of small pieces from everyone. So I cannot put my finger on one thing. And also my business evolved a lot as myself. And during different phases of this journey, the inspiration came from different people, the places that I live, the experiences that I've been through. But I would say my childhood, sometimes even without me acknowledging it, especially at the beginning of the business, it was a main part of how I came up with this idea. Definitely migration, because sometimes you need a language, common language, to talk to people, and I found that the language of food is something that so many people can relate to, and it's considered as a safe way of open open up. And I see it I witnessed this in my work, at my work, and also in my personal life, that how the conversation around cultural practices and the language of food open up the conversation for more difficult topics.
That's very
And
interesting.
yeah, and also I found it very exciting and interesting, creative, to bring people around doing an activity together that is very sensory. And also I have this very sensitive I was always sensitive towards smell and light and energy of the space. And that was part of my upbringing. Everywhere that I go, or any food experiences that I had, sometimes I remember the smell and the texture, even if I don't have that much memory of that, of the context or the space. So I just wanted to have all these elements at my work. And also I consider myself as a survival of perfectionism. I'm still have it, and it didn't vanish, but I'm more and more aware of it. And I realized I picked up flatbread at the beginning because for me it was a way to embrace imperfection, opposite way of the kind of French bread and sourdough that you have to do things step by step and be patient and do it right. Otherwise, you don't get the right texture. Whereas flatbread is not like this. And it's a very simple, basic skill. And it was also about, unconsciously, it was about my very complex relationship with food, which is now I understand it was ADHD related, and this is how my brain operates. I think I wanted to add all these elements of my own struggles and come up with the idea that have all these elements, and also at the same time create that safe space for people to share. Now, I would say at this stage of my journey for my business, I would say the main concept is just creating that safe space for people to share and learn from each other's experiences. But this is the background and the context that I gave you. This is how I started. And I was inspired by so many people during this journey. That's why it's a hard question.
But that's absolutely fine. Again, we are all different, and I have multiple inspirations as well. So there wouldn't be one person I could name only who inspires me. So that's great. And the more people you get inspiration from, I think the better it is, because then you will add the element of the difference and of the uniqueness of each inspiration you have. And that's incredible. You were talking about the flatbread, and I cook because I have to, but if I can skip the kitchen, I will. So I know the basics about making bread. I don't think I've ever tried to make bread myself. So as you were speaking, I was learning about the complexities of the different breads. And I'm interested to actually know from you, what does a Bake to Explore workshop entail? So what happens when you organize a workshop? Who can go? Also for our listeners to know exactly what you do, and maybe, who knows, reach out to you and be interested in it. How is a typical Bake to Explore workshop?
Thank you. Yeah, I would love to have a conversation about this. You have to stop me because it's something that I'm really passionate about. I'm at the moment, the Explorer is a B2B business.
Mhm.
So I'm working with corporates, the corporates that I share the same value with, the corporate that they do care about their people and the impact of their work on communities and also on people. Sorry, the environment and the
The
community, the
communities.
impact of their works on communities and environment. I usually my I've got two offers. I have the cultural team bonding events, which we bake and break bread together and
Mhm.
eat it at the end of the workshop together. I usually organize them within the group up to 20 people because I want to spend some time individually with people and give this people space to talk.
Mhm.
I'm also offer longer sessions where we do bake and cook and do food and bread pairing with olive oil because now that I'm in Greece, I educate myself about olive oil, extra virgin olive oil a little bit. I visited the olive grove and there is an amazing female olive oil production that hopefully we are going to do some collaboration together for corporate retreats next year, which I'm so excited about. And also the whole life of female farmers fascinates me. I really hope that I can make a documentary about it
Wow,
because
that's
it's
very
a
exciting.
very interesting population that is overlooked. Female farmers,
Yeah.
I think in any country, in some countries, they have more visibility because how much the media pay attention and also the policies, but in some countries they are completely invisible. Okay, back to the conversation. And also recently I offer speaking to corporate sector, especially legal sector, because my story can be very relatable, the challenges that I have as a human rights lawyer, which is pretty much the same with some extra layers
Mhm.
of because of the complexity of the nature of the work, and also if you are a consultant and how you navigate through these challenges to create your own um, to claim your own space and also come up with a self-care plan and create some kind of community around yourself, just not to be on yourself, because I've been through that journey. It's a very lonely practice. It doesn't matter if you are part of a law firm or you're a consultant. So yeah, I have two workshops, team bonding and half a day out of office workshop, as well as speaking. This is how people can work with me, and I do genuinely believe that there is no one solution to a challenge. So I'm always up to and encourage people to talk to me about their needs, specific needs and goals. And then I curate the session for them in a tailor-made way. This is part of my approach in business.
That sounds amazing. So, people, you know what to do. Just contact Leila. I'll add the links to her LinkedIn and any other. Maybe I don't know if you have a website or you can share that with me, and I will add the links
I would love that.
at the end. Great.
Neurodiverse Voices podcast, celebrating difference.
Um, how would you define neurodiversity? And why is it important to recognize and embrace the concept in your point of view?
Well, I think it's maybe I can answer this in this way. I think it's all of us, it's very important to remind ourselves that if all our brains would work in the same way, we wouldn't have been survived as a human being, as a species. The
Nope.
reason we survived and so many didn't is that our brains work differently. And I do genuinely believe that we need to speak more and more about how different types of brain can bring to the table. How, for example, an autistic person see things, digest things, process things, and how that lens can bring new perspective to problems, and to have an addition, which is very significant and is very different from a neurotypical brain. I think we don't talk about the aspects a lot with the specific examples, or people with ADHD or other types of neurodivergency. And also, yes, it is, yes, to be able to communicate the way my brain works, I sometimes unconsciously, I educate people around me, but that's not just our responsibility. I think it's the responsibility of every single person to be sensitive about their surroundings and what's happening around them, and how they can level up the play fields for others, as an employer, as parents, as friends, as partners. Because sometimes I found it much more difficult to explain how my brain works for people who are close to me, rather than at the professional level. Because at the professional level, I can say, okay, read this book, this is the term, this is what exactly mean. But when it comes to new people in my life, my close friends, because I don't have that sensitivity, hypersensitivity towards rejection and criticism, when it comes to people who are close to you, it becomes even more. So I don't want any kind of weirdo reaction from them. So I found it much more difficult to explain how my brain works, and how my brain works differently to people who are close to me.
I think it makes a difference, because when we are close to someone, I think there's that taken for granted factor, isn't it? It's your parents, it's your partner, it's your husband, it's your wife. It's just different, and what you just said makes total sense. And you also reminded me of Dr. Temple Grandin. I don't know if you've heard about her, Temple Grandin.
No, I don't. Or maybe
She's autistic, and she was brought up in the 60s in the US. And she's still, I think she's about 70 years old now. She's still an advocate. But the first time I heard about her, and the quote I heard at that time, was that she used to say, if we were all neurotypical, we would still be in the cave having a chat, and the world would never have evolved. And because of exactly what you were saying, that if our brains were exactly the same, that we wouldn't have evolved. So it just reminded me of this. And I really, she's an inspiration to me, you see. There's a film based on her true story, actually, I think it's on Amazon Prime.
Mm-hmm.
It's paid, but it's just called Temple Grandin, and it's with Claire Danes. She's also one of my favorite actresses, and I would recommend everyone to watch it. Yes. And I'll put it on the links as well.
Perfect.
Okay.
Neurodiverse Voices podcast, celebrating difference.
And I think we've kind of talked about this, but how has being neurodivergent been both a challenge and a powerful lens in both your personal and professional life?
Personally, I found the emotional regulation, the emotional irregulation part the most challenging. Also, I think for women is more challenging, because your hormonal changes doesn't help. For example, if you come up with a strategy for certain months, it doesn't mean that it works for next month or the month after, because your body is there is a hormonal fluctuation and happening a lot. That part for me is the most challenging one, even more than the focus problem. But on the other side, that's think living with a fast forward working, not fast forwarding, sorry. The brain that works very fast it has got so many positive aspects, because you come up with so many creative ideas every single day, but then again, that makes you very overwhelmed and sometimes exhausted, that you don't want to talk maybe for 2 days to just recover from the overwhelmed
Recharge your batteries.
But I guess the compassionate side of me and the caring side of me is just something that I'm really grateful, because I feel the pain of others. I feel their happiness. I just see so many things about them that help me to be more compassionate. I'm just trying to be compassionate towards myself in the same way that I am towards others. But that part I really enjoy, really appreciate, and I'm grateful for, as well as the fact that my brain works very fast, and it's just sometimes you feel like that it's amazing to live with that brain, but another day or maybe another hour, you feel like that, okay, if it was a bit slower, I wouldn't have complained.
It's like a roller coaster, isn't it?
Indeed.
Yeah, ups and downs, and
Yeah.
sometimes we wish we are happy to have it, but other times you just wish you didn't.
Yeah. But the compassionate part, I guess, I rarely regret that I am, even though sometimes it's hard and it affects you as a person emotionally and also psychologically, but I'm still quite grateful that I am a compassionate, caring person. And
I think we tend to actually forget to be more compassionate with ourselves and be kind to ourselves, which it's about learning how to do it. I wish I was more compassionate with myself. I feel like I'm still very hard, even though I'm self-conscious about it. I still feel like I'm very hard with myself sometimes.
Totally get that.
One day at a time, and we will get there eventually.
Neurodiverse Voices podcast, celebrating difference.
And Leila, why do you believe it's important to create spaces where people can bring their whole selves to the table? Like your workshops, for example.
I think that authenticity and uniqueness in every single individual is something that we should celebrate more. And this is the only way that we can celebrate it.
Absolutely.
Or at least start to celebrate it more and just give that space, that visibility to every single individual, not the one that makes more money, not the one that has got the most beautiful face or body or appearance or professional position or visibility. Every single individual. I think that uniqueness and individuality that all of us have, it needs to be more celebrated.
Yes, and allowed to be seen, not just focusing on what's this convention of, the successful white man, for example, which is prominent in the world. So it's to value and hear the different perspectives of each and every single one of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the only way that we can No, I'm sorry. That's the only way that we can get ourselves out of the different boxes, different buckets, and all the stereotypes and all the cliches that we are surrounded by mainstream materials. That's the only way. That's the only way I think human beings can reclaim their agency.
Yeah, absolutely. What common misconceptions do you encounter about neurodivergent individuals like yourself?
Oh, so many. But the ones that it hurts me the most is just the fact that, oh, we all have a little bit of ADHD. That most of the time made me crazy
Or we are
because,
all a bit autistic, aren't we?
yes, no, it's just, yeah, the simplification, because you put so much effort on daily basis to understand yourself, to come up with strategies, to be consistent with the strategies, and make your environment much more inclusive. And if you're lucky, make to the environment more inclusive for others, because not so many of us have this, I think, privilege to have an impact on our
Mhm.
environment. And imagine that you put all these things extra than your day-to-day activities and your ordinary life, and then people completely ignore those parts either and simplify the situation, or just don't want to listen, just react in a very, I think it's judgmental. It's a judgmental reaction when people just um, come up with these kind of comments.
I think it's also due to some ignorance at the end of the day. It feels like people sometimes don't know what to say, and because they've heard this before, that's all they can say. Um, and that's why I believe that everyone should be a bit more curious about it and look for understanding. We spend so much time on Netflix, on the internet, on social media, scrolling up and down. And one
Yeah,
of the things I asked in one of my episodes was, it's a simple thing. Follow one account that's related with neurodivergence, that's about
yeah,
autism, that's about dyslexia. It's that simple, and start reading about it. And you still have plenty of time to, watch your series, listen to your music,
yeah,
listen to podcasts. It's not just the Neurodiverse Voices podcast. There's so many podcasts out there
yeah,
where you can learn, especially from the lived experience. So, and I also relate with me before being being a parent of an autistic daughter. I didn't know when I started hearing that she might be autistic. I was scared. I was in denial because I didn't have the understanding. And
yeah,
back in the day, we were not talking about it. So these days, I feel like there's no excuse for us not to be curious, for us not to um, go and have a listen to a podcast, scroll up and down in a social media account. Or there's also some really good documentaries on the TV, like Chris Packham's Inside Our Autistic Minds, for
yeah, yeah, yeah.
example. There's so many celebrities as well who are using their voice to raise awareness. So hopefully these misconceptions and the stigma around neurodivergence will, one day we we won't have it, or at least that's the hope. I think we'll still have it because there's been historically, we have race, we have gender, we have sexual orientation, we have so much of this, and there's still stigma, there's still racism,
Yeah,
there's still
yeah.
discrimination. But I think we just need to bring neurodivergence to as an addition to the 9 protected characteristics, and not put everything into one single bucket like disabilities. They're
Yeah,
it's
true.
it's the systems, it's society. There's still a lot of work to do. So
Neurodiverse Voices podcast, celebrating difference.
but we will get there.
Yes.
We
But
will.
also the whole awareness and in individuals in general helps to bring the demand at the public level, at the community level, and also hopefully at the institutional level to level up the play field. And then again, those people with a different type of brain, they can maximize their contribution. And I think that's beneficial for everyone. And there are so many little things that can be done. It's not just
Yeah.
It's not just about allocating massive budgets. It's not just changing the whole system. There are so many simple actions that we can take if the intention is there, if the knowledge is there.
Yes, definitely. And we can do it in stages. It can be done gradually. It doesn't need to be a change from one day to another. So as long as we have the awareness, as long as we understand it, even if it's minimally, it's already the starting point for change to happen, for sure.
Neurodiverse Voices podcast, celebrating difference.
Okay, so what changes would you like to see in societal attitudes towards neurodivergent people? I think we just talked about this now. So one of them would be, don't say we are all a bit ADHD or we are all a bit autistic, but what else, Leila?
I think I would like to see this shift in the mindset that every single effort should be focused on level up the play field for everyone to be able to maximize their potentials. If we shift the mindset into this, and then again, we can see as a society, as well as individuals, we can see our little parts.
It's creating the opportunities and the environments to allow everyone to
And
thrive.
that facilitates that environment, because sometimes just people with neurodivergent brain, they just need a little basic adjustment at home, at workplace, to be able to maybe minimize their challenges. They don't need to be alone in every single challenge. Yes, certain things that you have to do it on your own or with a professional help, but there are so many little adjustments, like the light, like the temperature, like the noise, or your devices. These are
It's not rocket science.
I think
that's the conclusion that we get all the time. It's that simple, and it's not rocket science as long as we are willing to do that. What advice?
It's beneficial for everyone. It's beneficial both for neurodivergent as well as neurotypical.
Yes, we're definitely not disregarding neurotypical brains and neurotypical individuals, but it's about having everyone included.
Indeed, yeah.
With their needs, and we know that some of the systems we have, like the education system, it's probably not even suitable anymore for neurotypical children. So it's exactly it's about the small changes and the adaptations and the adjustments that can be done, and they don't need to be expensive or massive, as you said, to embrace everyone and to allow everyone to thrive with their capabilities.
Neurodiverse Voices podcast, celebrating difference.
What advice would you give to neurodivergent young people who are struggling to find their path? going back to your own experience of growing up without knowing or being aware that you were neurodivergent?
Oh, it's never been easy to live with a brain that doesn't work with others, but there is so much beauty in it. And I'm sure, and I witnessed that among my friends' kids, that they are neurodivergent. There is the level of awareness and support from from parents and schools, not everywhere, and not it's not enough, of course. But I think this is something that I can see a hope, and I think it should be hopeful, because it's happening, and the pace of change, to be honest, if you look at it, even compare it to the situation in 10 years ago, the number of early diagnosis, all the data, as well as the experience of people, shows that the change is happening. But it's never been easy.
Yeah, it's a bit, the advice can only be, it's not just up to us. I think embracing your neurodivergence is very important, but of course there's all these external factors around you that don't help. But I think accepting yourself and accepting that you are different and having the hope that things will change will help young people for sure.
Actually, the way you articulated it just bring me an idea that it can be more relatable. Just look at the nature, because I usually bring the example of the nature to people when they are really, really off. Because in the nature, there is nothing is the same, exact same. And things are changing all the time. So whenever the situation is very tough, I think looking at the nature can be a little bit, not little, can be inspiring, and can give you the energy, because nothing is solid. At least it is in front of you.
Absolutely. And if we think about certain types of flowers, for example, they will only flourish in a certain environment, isn't it?
Yes.
So, yeah, we will remain hopeful and things will get better, because, by manifesting our hopes as well, we are definitely, yes, kind of putting it out there, and by doing our small parts, eventually we will start seeing the impact of it. It might take a while, but it will definitely happen.
Neurodiverse Voices podcast, celebrating difference.
So, Leila, who is your biggest support on your journey? And you might not have a single person again, because
professionally, I would say Kim Rain, the woman, the content she's creating on social media is the way. That was the opening for me to start to learn ADHD, and her book helped me a lot. Now I'm working with her more, because she has got this. She has got different supports for women with ADHD in business, but as a professional, she's the person that was the biggest support in terms of creating relevant knowledge and share her expertise, and also her personal stories, her own stories, and her daughter's stories as well. and the content she's creating at different level as kind of in a format of a book and also in social media, which is more digestible, shorter pieces. And at personal level, to be honest, every single woman that is part of this ADHD brain business, ADHD brain in business community that I'm part of, every single struggle that they have, every single win that they share, and every single day-to-day challenge they put and share with others and put themselves in a vulnerable situation. And they don't think that, oh, I'm a super successful businesswoman, I shouldn't feel like this, I shouldn't say this. The way that they put their authentic self out there, yes, it is a safe space, but still needs some level of courage to put yourself, and you should be brave to put yourself in that vulnerable situation, and the emotional burden of responding, because when you put something out there, you are engaging with the audience, and that needs some emotional capacity as well. They take that, they make that move and initiate that act of bravery. And I don't use Facebook that much, but the only place that I go, whenever I open it, I read one post and I think, thank God, I have this community, and then close it. Yeah, the inspiration from every single person in that group that I told you, they just said that act of bravery that they put themselves in that vulnerable position and share is just very inspiring on daily basis, to be honest.
Yeah, it's like a village of inspiration that you have,
Yeah,
and that's
yes, I'm grateful for that.
yes.
Yes, that was a perfect way of wrapping it.
Yeah, that's great to see. And if you were a superhero or had a superpower, what or who would that be?
Oh, that's interesting because I said that to my friend last night. If I had a superpower, reading the book by Brené Brown called Atlas of the Heart, I made that compulsory for every single individual, maybe 16 plus.
Okay, well, that's quite specific.
My biggest struggle maybe is emotional irregulation. And that book is all about naming and emotions.
Yeah, and Brené Brown is great. I still need to listen to the podcast. I've just watched her documentary on Netflix, and I well, it wasn't a documentary. It's just an episode. But yeah, I heard about her from different guests, and I was curious. So I just need to read and listen to the podcasts as well, because she's great.
Book in particular has got an audiobook because I cannot read. I can read, but I cannot be focused and read
On the
more
reading.
than
Yeah.
2, 3 pages. But I do listen to podcasts and audiobooks a lot. So this book, she read it herself. So the audiobook is available as well.
Okay, well, that's good to know. And if you can share the link with me, that would be great as well. We can put it on the episode's release. And what are your hopes for the future? I also think we talked about this already, but anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, I think I really hope that we become more compassionate and more curious about each other as human beings and what's happening around us. I think that makes the world definitely a better place to live.
Definitely. Yeah, that's the way to go for sure. In a small summary or a sum up, that's really it. And finally, Leila, if your heart had a voice, what would it tell us?
Oh, I don't know the answer. If it's okay not to have an answer. I don't
I
know.
think I think it would probably be kind to yourself, be compassionate, be hopeful.
Yeah. Or maybe we should help each other which we can't say to people just because one of the sentences that it really bothers me is just that be your authentic self. It's not easy. We need to help each other. We need to give each other the space and voice and facilitate that space for everyone to be able to be fully themselves. We all can help each other. But it doesn't help if just say and just encourage people. We just need to actively and proactively.
Because if you try to be your authentic self, but you're not accepted and you are being judged, then you're not going to be your authentic self.
Yeah.
So again,
Yeah.
it's part of it's a group effort. It's a village effort.
Yeah.
It's everyone's responsibility to allow us to be ourselves. It's not just ours. We can be confident to do it, and I think that's probably the start. But if you have trauma and if you
Yeah.
have situations that are not so pleasant, then you're never going to be able to do it. Yeah. Great. Thank you so much, Leila. It was a pleasure, and it was a really good conversation we had in here. And yeah, I wish you all the best with Bake to Explore, with your EDI, or let me spell it out: equality, diversity, and inclusion, because some people might not know it like that. Yes, the best of luck with your journey, professional journey and personal journey. And yes, as I said, I hope to be able to catch up with you at some point soon. And maybe I'll come to Athens. That would be amazing.
Yes, please. Thank you so much for creating this space for people to share. And I really, really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. That really warms my heart. And it shows that I'm making a difference, even if it's not too many people. I know that I am for a few, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Interviewing Leila was a great way of ending this season of the Neurodiverse Voices podcast. Leila has brought in so many new perspectives to neurodivergence that I haven't yet discussed with any previous guests. Being a migrant, menopause, and how neurodivergent signs become more evident for women during that period. Cultural diversity, how the lack of awareness in previous generations has an impact on those who are late diagnosed or realize later that they are neurodivergent. I am extremely grateful to Leila for bringing all of these topics up, and equally proud to see how she has stopped masking and has become this brave to use her voice and advocate for her needs and for more awareness of neurodivergence. I was hoping to release a solo episode before Christmas. However, my batteries are at very low levels at the moment, and all I can think about is going through next week and then switch off for a while. I am looking forward to much deserved family time, walks in the nature, and reducing tech time until early January. I would like to wish you all a very happy festive period filled with love, joy, and kindness. May we all take this wonderful in quotation marks, time of the year to reflect and commit to making small changes, such as being kind to one another and most importantly to ourselves. And wonderful in quotation marks because we know that for many neurodivergent people, Christmas might not be the most wonderful time of the year. On the contrary, it can be very overwhelming. To my fellow Parents of neurodivergent children, be a bit more selfish and take that time to look after yourselves, even if it's only 5-10 minutes per day. It will help you mentally, and this is very much needed. May you enter 2025 in good spirits, and that all that you dreamed of for the new year becomes a reality. Thank you for being on that side for the past 2 seasons. I look forward to continue having you on that side in the new year for season 3, with my first guest being 16, autistic, and full of passion for advocating for herself and for other autistic girls. So save the date, 11th of January, to welcome my guest, Imogen. Until then, listen, watch to all previous episodes on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. And remember to subscribe and follow to support this mission of mine and of my guests to raise awareness, foster understanding, promote acceptance, and celebrating the differences of those who are neurodivergent. Merry Christmas, everyone, and have a great start of the new year. Bye.